Hello, my friends. Brett Pattison coming at you from the financial capital of the West, Salt Lake City, Utah. Joined by the big fella. Some call him Husky. We call him the chairman. Brian.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Had a great spring break with the family. Now we're back at it. So great to see your face again.
Good to have you back.
But you know what, Brian? I'm going to name a few things off. And I'm going to tell you why I'm so exhausted.
Exhausted. After a little break?
Yeah, well, when you hear this stuff, you're going to understand.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, inflation numbers came out the other day, and not the other day, yesterday. And we're at 8.5% inflation, the highest in 40-something years. I mean, filling up my truck is painful. Hey, government spending's out of control. I'm reading on Twitter that China's in a lockdown. I mean, millions of people can't get food, right? The midterm elections are coming up, and I don't know if that's negative or positive. Depends on which side of the fence you're on. There's a war, Russia, Ukraine. Hopefully not global, but I don't know. Who knows? We've got Fed tightening, interest rates going to go up. Brian, I'm exhausted. I mean, we're coming off a pandemic. You know what I want to do, Brian? I want to take all my investments, just put it in cash, set it to the side, and I want to sit this one out.
Sit it out.
I want to sit it out. What do you think?
Really?
Well, no, but
No.
many people are saying that because they are exhausted.
I've heard that.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that exact quote. I want to sit this one out. And after listening to you, it does sound exhausting. I'm exhausted just listening to you.
Yeah.
No offense, but
hey, none taken.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in the world, and I think a lot of people might have that same feeling that there's just too much negativity going on in the world, and
moving into the cash will take my pain and anxiety about what could happen, and as I put it in cash, my pain and anxiety go away.
Yeah.
That's the thought process.
Right.
Agree or disagree?
Well,
what should I do?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people might hear all of that, and probably a lot of people have those same thoughts. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have those same thoughts.
Yeah, they do.
And feel like maybe that's the wisest thing to do, is just to sit it out, wait till things clear up. But the problem with that idea, or doing that, is there's always something going on. There's hardly ever a time or period of time when things are just rosy and everything is doing well, and it's time to buy, time to invest. If it is, then guess what? You're going to pay high prices for stocks, because if there's not a lot of bad news or controversy out there, which it seems like there always is something,
the end of the world is always about to happen.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always something, and it's hard for me to pinpoint a period in time when you don't have something to point to that there's a lot of negativity in the world. There's always something to be negative about, or at least in the headlines there's always something.
Yep.
So and when you really boil everything down, and you look at history, and we've had a lot of terrible things that's happened in the world historically, and I think you might have some facts on that.
Yeah, you want me to bring it up now?
Well, yeah, but just say that if you look at all these in history, all these various times when we've had historical catastrophes, you know what? We've made it through these. We've recovered. Like I've said before, and you've said before, every economic downturn, every market crash has always been temporary. We've never had a permanent crash. So
and before I read these four things off, and the S&P 500 levels at the time of those events, The one not the one. There's many things, too many to count that I love about my wife. Okay, too many. I couldn't even write them all down. One of the ones that I love, she's a nurse. And when we see an accident or something happens, right? This is one of my greatest weaknesses. I like turn my head, somebody's hurt, blood, I can't deal with it. I freak out. And she's like, oh, and attacks the problem and helps people. She does it all the time with all of our neighbors. I love her for it, right? Again, one of the 1,000 million things. That's not a number, but if it was, it'd be a big number. That I love about her. But she's calm under pressure. And when the market when people feel exhausted because of what's happening.
1,000 million is a billion.
That's a big number.
That is a big
Thank you for crunching that for me. When the market's going to hell and everyone thinks the world's about to end, right? And we're about to go into World War III, or if something unknown happens overnight, like 9/11, the greatest characteristic that the people managing your money can have is being rational and calm. And I feel like that's one of the things that we have with Spencer, you and I. Between the three of us, we have the ability to keep a calm collective.
Yeah.
And so here's those four things, and this is why it's important to have that. Hey, the four events: 1987 crash, 9/11, the Great Financial Crisis, and COVID. Like, those have been the big monster events that have occurred that you could look at any one of those and say the end of the world's happening. And in 1987, and this is the important part. In 1987, which was the largest one-day crash in the history of the stock market, the S&P 500 closed that prior Friday before the great crash at 283. Okay, so just keep your brain on that number, 283. Sure. The night before the horrific 9/11 occurred, the S&P 500 closed at 1093. Okay, the Friday before Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, and the Great Financial Crisis really got kicking, the S&P closed at 1252. Yeah. All right, and finally, February 19th, before we locked down, of 2020, before we locked down, the S&P closed at 3386. So those four horrible events that occurred, those were the closing prices of the S&P 500. Today, as of 10 minutes ago, the S&P 500 was trading at 4438. So what does that tell you about taking a break of the exhaustion? Should you do it? And what else do those numbers tell you?
Yeah. I'm old enough to have experienced every one of those. Three of the four, I was in the business. I mean, I was doing this.
Yeah.
The first one, the 1987 crash, I was just months away from getting married.
Oh.
Yeah. And but still in college, but just months away of getting married. And I remember hearing the headlines of the stock market crashed, and of course I had no money in the stock market, so it didn't affect me. But I mean, what that tells me is I hear that, the numbers go from 283 to 1,093 to 1,252 to 3,386 to 4,400. We recovered. Life went on after all of these tragic or catastrophic events. Life went on. The market went on. Business went on. There wasn't like this permanent destruction of the market, but at the time it felt very scary for a lot of people, myself included. 9/11 I remember very well, and that was crazy. The uncertainty coming after 9/11, and what is this? And then, of course, the financial crisis and Lehman Brothers, something that we all thought never could happen. That the United States would allow a big investment bank go bankrupt. They allowed that to happen. and then of course COVID, which is something none of us have, nobody alive have ever dealt with anything like that. So all these things were very
End
scary.
of the world type.
Yeah, it felt like the end of the
Yeah.
world. I mean, COVID felt like it was like, okay, this might be the end of the world, but life went on, business went on, and
Here's what
yeah,
Nick Murray says, and then I want you to talk about how our process, calm, collective process of it relates to what Nick Murray said.
yeah,
Okay, he says, superior companies during that time continued to grow and innovate, increasing earnings and dividends over time,
yeah.
even in the midst of all that. So how does that relate to our process with everything else going on in the world, which is making me tired?
So, I think it relates very well to what we do. We are looking for superior companies. That's part of our process of identifying superior companies, companies with competitive advantages. That gives me comfort to know that I can go to bed at night and I own some great businesses with durable competitive advantages, regardless of what's happening in the headlines in the world, that will continue to grow and move forward and increase revenues, increase dividends over time. That doesn't mean there will be hiccups along the road. There will be, we will have economic contractions. We will go through recessions from time to time. That doesn't mean the end of the world. It just means that
Volatility.
there's a little bit of volatility. That's just life. We're going to have stops and goes and ups and downs from time to time. But that's not an investment strategy. You pull your money out of the market and then wait for
What?
wait for somebody to ring the bell and say, okay, it's time to get back in.
Once there's clarity, after being exhausted, once you're no longer exhausted, and you buy in, that's the wrong time.
So
You're going to be at the top.
I got a quote. Let me read that. Let's see here. Well,
Is this Warren Buffett?
this is Warren Buffett,
I like it already.
and he says basically he says if you wait for the robins to sing, spring is already here. Essentially, what he's saying is if you're waiting for somebody to ring the bell and say, hey, waiting for the clear sign to buy, spring is already here, meaning stock prices essentially are already going to be moved significantly higher once the air is cleared or things clear up. And so that's not a good investment strategy. In fact, market volatility creates opportunity. We've talked about that many times before, is that when there's a market volatility or uncertainty, that creates cheap or attractive asset prices,
Yep.
and that's how you can make good returns.
If you have a process and you can be calm, like my wife is when somebody's bleeding, like we are
Yeah.
when the market's crazy. That's what you need in order to not only get through those times, but hopefully thrive in those times.
Yeah.
So you're saying I shouldn't pull my money and sit this one out?
No, I don't. I absolutely not. And of course, I'm not doing that myself. I'm staying invested, and I know you are as well. I don't really think about, okay, I'm going to get out of the market because there might be some bad headline out there. I'm just looking to own great businesses over a long period of time, and that works pretty well. And historically, if you've done that, you've done very well. People that trade in and out of the market based on what they think might happen tomorrow, they tend to
On their pain threshold.
right.
Yep. All right, so I guess what we're saying here is relax. Turn off the TV. Enjoy springtime and those robins that wherever you live, they may be singing right now. Right? In Utah, hey, we got 2 inches of snow in our front yards.
Yeah.
So nothing's singing up there.
We need the snow.
We need the snow.
We need it.
All right, my friend, until next time, hope this has been helpful for you at home. Bye-bye.